The blood hit the marble floor before anyone could scream. A pregnant woman collapsed in the middle of Chicago's most expensive hotel, her worn-out shoes sliding across polished stone while billionaires sipped champagne 20 feet away. One man saw her fall. One man moved when everyone else turned away. What he didn't know was that saving her life would destroy everything he thought he understood about his own past. This is the story of two broken people who had nothing and everything to lose. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it hits you the way it hit me, smash that like button. Now let's get into it. The January wind off Lake Michigan cut through Chicago like a blade, but inside the Sinclair Grand Hotel, the air was thick with expensive perfume and the low hum of people who'd never worried about money a day in their lives. Adrian Cole stood near the bar, a glass of scotch in his hand that he hadn't touched in 20 minutes. He wasn't listening to the conversation happening around him, something about tax shelters and winter homes in Aspen. His mind was somewhere else. It usually was. Adrian, you're not even pretending to care anymore. The voice belonged to Marcus Chen, his business partner, and one of the few people who could get away with calling him out. Adrian glanced at him. Was I supposed to? It's a fundraiser. You're supposed to smile and write checks. I wrote the check before I walked in. Marcus shook his head, smiling despite himself. You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're about to tell me. You've forgotten how to be a human being. Adrian didn't argue. There wasn't much point. Marcus wasn't wrong. Somewhere between building coal construction into a $100 million empire and raising his daughter alone, Adrian had stopped caring about things like small talk and charity galas. He showed up because it was expected. He shook hands because it kept the business running. But the part of him that used to enjoy this kind of thing, if it ever existed, was long gone. He was about to make an excuse to leave when he saw her. She was across the ballroom, near the far wall, pushing a mop bucket slowly across the marble floor. Most people didn't even register her presence. She was part of the scenery, invisible in the way service workers always were to people like this. But Adrian noticed. Maybe it was the way she moved, slow, careful, like every step hurt. Or maybe it was the way she kept one hand pressed against the small of her back, her face pale under the harsh chandelier light. She was pregnant. Very pregnant. And she looked like she was about to collapse. Adrian? Marcus was saying something, but Adrian wasn't listening anymore. The woman stopped for a moment, leaning heavily on the mop handle. Her eyes closed briefly, and Adrian saw her jaw tighten like she was fighting through pain. Then she straightened up, took a breath, and kept moving. Who is that? Adrian asked, cutting Marcus off mid-sentence. Marcus followed his gaze. Who? The janitor? She's pregnant. Yeah, so? So why the hell is she working in a place like this? She can barely stand. Marcus shrugged. Probably needs the money. Everyone needs money. Not like that. Adrian didn't know why it bothered him so much. He'd walked past homeless people on Michigan Avenue 1,000 times without stopping. He'd donated to shelters and food banks and written it off on his taxes like everyone else. But there was something about this woman, something about the exhaustion in her face, the quiet way she kept working even though her body was clearly screaming at her to stop. He started walking toward her before he even realized he'd made the decision. Adrian, where are you? Marcus called after him, but Adrian didn't stop. The woman didn't notice him approaching. She was focused on a scuff mark near one of the columns, scrubbing at it with the kind of stubborn determination that came from knowing your supervisor would give you hell if you missed it. Excuse me, Adrian said. She flinched, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. When she looked up, her eyes were dark brown, red-rimmed from exhaustion. Up close, Adrian could see just how young she was, 30, maybe? But she looked older. Life had a way of doing that. I'm sorry, sir. I'll be out of your way in a minute. Her voice was quiet, hoarse. I'm not worried about that. Are you okay? She blinked, confused. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Her expression shifted, guarded now. I'm just doing my job. When are you due? That's none of your business. Fair enough. Adrian wasn't great at this kind of thing. Empathy had never been his strong suit. He built buildings. He managed contracts. He didn't do feelings. But something about the way she looked at him, wary, defensive, like she was used to people asking questions just to judge her, made him push a little harder. I'm not trying to be rude. I just think you should probably be home, not working a shift in a hotel ballroom. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Her jaw tightened. That's something rich people say when they've never had to choose between paying rent and eating. Adrian opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a sharp voice cut through the air. Excuse me! Excuse me! They both turned. A woman in a glittering silver dress was striding toward them, her face twisted in irritation. Adrian recognized her immediately, Vanessa Whitmore, a socialite who spent more time at charity events than actually doing charity. Is there a problem here? Vanessa's eyes were locked on the pregnant woman like she was a stain on the marble. No problem, Adrian said quickly. Vanessa ignored him. You, she pointed at the woman. You're blocking the walkway. This is a private event. I'm cleaning, ma'am. Well, clean faster, or better yet, clean somewhere else. You're making the guests uncomfortable. Adrian felt something hot flare in his chest. She's doing her job, Vanessa. Leave her alone. Vanessa finally looked at him, her expression shifting to something sickeningly sweet. Adrian, darling, I didn't see you there. I'm just trying to make sure the event runs smoothly. You understand? What I understand is that you're harassing someone who's working. Vanessa's smile tightened. I'm doing no such thing. I'm simply pointing out that this is not the place for... She gestured vaguely at the woman's stomach. This sort of display. Display? Adrian's voice dropped, cold. She's pregnant, not performing. She's making people uncomfortable. The only person making anyone uncomfortable right now is you. Vanessa's face flushed. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially not in public. I don't appreciate your tone, Adrian, and I don't appreciate yours. For a moment, the two of them stared at each other, and Adrian could feel the room shifting around them. People were starting to notice. Conversations were dropping off. This was exactly the kind of scene Adrian usually avoided, but he didn't care. Vanessa seemed to realize she was losing. She turned back to the pregnant woman, her voice dripping with condescension. What's your name? The woman hesitated. Lena. Well, Lena, I suggest you finish up quickly and stay out of sight. This is a high-class event, and we can't have you distracting people. Lena didn't respond. She just nodded, her face carefully blank. Vanessa smiled, satisfied, and walked away. Adrian turned back to Lena, but before he could say anything, her face went white. Are you... She stumbled, her hand flying to her stomach. The mop clattered to the floor. Whoa! Hey! Adrian reached for her, catching her arm before she fell. What's wrong? I'm fine, she gasped, but she clearly wasn't. Her breathing was shallow, her skin clammy. You need to sit down. I need to finish my shift. Forget the shift. You need a doctor. She tried to pull away from him, but her legs buckled. Adrian caught her, one arm around her back, the other steadying her shoulder. She was light, too light for someone this far along in a pregnancy. When's the last time you ate? He asked. She didn't answer. Lena, when did you last eat? This morning. Her voice was barely a whisper. What did you have? Toast. That's it? She didn't respond. Adrian felt something crack open inside him. He'd spent the last 5 years building walls around himself, keeping everything and everyone at arm's length. It was easier that way. Safer. But looking at this woman, this stranger who was barely holding herself together, something in him shifted. Come on, he said, I'm getting you out of here. I can't. I'll lose my job. I'll handle it. You don't understand. I understand that you're about to pass out in the middle of a hotel ballroom, and I'm not going to stand here and watch it happen. Before she could argue, Adrian pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Marcus, I need you to find the hotel manager. Tell him one of his employees needs immediate medical attention, and I'm taking her to the hospital. Adrian, what are you... Just do it. He hung up. Lena was staring at him like he'd lost his mind. You can't just... I already did. I don't even know you. My name's Adrian Cole. Now you do. He saw the recognition flicker in her eyes. Everyone in Chicago knew the name Cole Construction, but instead of looking impressed, she looked wary. I don't need your help. Yeah, you do. I don't need your charity. This isn't charity. This is basic human decency, which apparently is in short supply around here. She tried to straighten up, to pull away from him, but another wave of pain hit her and she gasped, doubling over. Okay, we're done arguing, Adrian said. He scooped her up before she could protest. One arm under her knees, the other around her back. Put me down! Not happening. People were definitely staring now. Adrian didn't care. He carried her through the ballroom, past the shocked faces and whispered conversations, out into the lobby. The cold air hit them like a wall when they stepped outside. Lena was shaking. From the cold or the pain, Adrian couldn't tell. Probably both. His driver was already pulling the car around. Marcus must have called ahead. Where are we going? Lena asked, her voice weak. Hospital. I can't afford. I'm paying. I don't want your money. Too bad. The car pulled up. Adrian's driver, an older man named Thomas, jumped out and opened the back door, his eyes widening when he saw Lena. Mr. Cole, is everything... Get us to Northwestern Memorial. Fast. Thomas didn't ask questions. He just nodded and got back in the driver's seat. Adrian slid into the back seat, still holding Lena. She tried to sit up on her own, but he kept one arm around her shoulders, steadying her. I'm fine, she said again, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. You keep saying that, but I don't think you know what fine means. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. Yeah, well, it's all relative. The car pulled away from the hotel, merging into late-night traffic. Chicago glittered around them, skyscrapers lit up against the dark sky. Lena leaned her head back against the seat, her eyes closed. Why are you doing this? Adrian didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he did, but he didn't want to say it out loud. Because he saw something in her that reminded him of himself 5 years ago, after his wife died, and he was left alone with a newborn daughter and no idea how to survive. Because he knew what it felt like to be drowning while everyone around you pretended not to notice. Because for the first time in a long time, he felt something other than emptiness. I don't know, he said finally. She opened her eyes, looking at him, really looking at him. You don't know me. No. I could be lying. I could be scamming you. Are you? She was quiet for a moment. Then, no. Then I guess we're good. She closed her eyes again. This is insane. Yeah, probably. They rode in silence for a while. Adrian could feel her breathing slow, her body relaxing slightly against him. He wondered when the last time was that someone had taken care of her. Probably a long time. What's your last name? He asked. Hart. Lena Hart. Yeah. How far along are you? 38 weeks. So, soon. Yeah, soon. Where's the father? Her jaw tightened. Gone. Adrian didn't push. He knew that tone. It was the same tone he used when people asked about his wife. The hospital came into view, its emergency entrance lit up bright against the night. Thomas pulled up to the doors and Adrian helped Lena out of the car. I can walk, she protested. I know. But you don't have to. Inside the emergency room was chaos. People coughing, kids crying, nurses moving fast between curtained-off sections. Adrian walked straight to the front desk, Lena leaning heavily against him. She's pregnant and she's in pain, Adrian said to the nurse. She needs to see someone now. The nurse looked up, ready to give the standard speech about wait times, but something in Adrian's expression made her pause. Maybe it was the way he was holding Lena, protective and urgent. Maybe it was the expensive suit that screamed money and lawyers. I'll get a doctor, she said. They were taken back within minutes. A young doctor with tired eyes listened to Lena's symptoms, checked her vitals, asked the standard questions. When did you last have a prenatal checkup? The doctor asked. Lena looked down. A while ago. How long? 2 months? The doctor's expression didn't change, but Adrian saw the concern flash across his face. Okay. We're going to run some tests, make sure everything's okay with the baby. They hooked Lena up to monitors, the steady beep of the baby's heartbeat filling the small room. Adrian stood against the wall, watching. He should probably leave. This wasn't his business. He'd gotten her to the hospital, done his good deed for the year. He could walk away now. But he didn't. The doctor came back an hour later. Good news. The baby's fine. Heart rate is strong. No signs of distress. Lena let out a breath she'd been holding. Thank God. But, the doctor continued, You're severely dehydrated and malnourished. Your blood pressure is too low. If you keep going like this, you're putting both yourself and the baby at serious risk. Lena nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. I'm going to recommend bed rest for at least the next week. No work, lots of fluids, proper meals. Okay, Lena said quietly. Do you have someone at home who can help you? Silence. Miss Hart? I'll be fine. The doctor looked at Adrian, then back at Lena. You need support right now. Is there anyone, family, friends, who can stay with you? I said I'll be fine. The doctor clearly wanted to argue, but he just sighed. All right. I'm going to keep you here overnight for observation. Make sure you're stable before we discharge you. After he left, Lena and Adrian sat in silence. The beeping of the monitors was the only sound. You can go, Lena said finally. I know. So why are you still here? Good question. Adrian didn't have an answer for that either. Where do you live? He asked instead. Why? Because when they discharge you tomorrow, someone needs to take you home. I can take a bus. Lena, I can. Where do you live? He asked again. She sighed. Pilsen. Adrian knew the neighborhood. It wasn't the worst part of Chicago, but it wasn't good either. Definitely not the kind of place a pregnant woman should be living alone. What's your apartment like? It's fine. How many rooms? 1. Heat? She hesitated. Sometimes. Adrian felt that crack inside him widen. What do you mean sometimes? The landlord's supposed to fix the radiator. He hasn't yet. It's January. I know what month it is. You're living in a one-room apartment with no heat while 8 months pregnant. 38 weeks, she corrected. And like I said, it's fine. I've got blankets. Adrian stared at her. She stared back, defiant. He pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Lena asked. Making a call. To who? He didn't answer. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice came through, professional and alert despite the late hour. Mr. Cole? Catherine, I need you to do something for me. Catherine Reeves was Adrian's personal assistant, the kind of person who could organize a corporate merger and plan a 6-year-old's birthday party in the same afternoon without breaking a sweat. I'm listening. There's a woman who needs a place to stay, short term. I want you to set up one of the guest rooms at the house. Silence on the other end. Adrian could practically hear Catherine's brain working, trying to figure out what the hell he was doing. A guest room, she repeated carefully. Yes. At your house. That's what I said. May I ask? No, just do it. Have it ready by tomorrow morning. Of course, Mr. Cole. He hung up. Lena was staring at him like he'd grown a second head. What did you just do? Solved a problem. What problem? You need a place to stay. I have a house with 6 empty bedrooms. I have a place to stay. You have a room with no heat and probably no food. That's none of your business. You made it my business when you collapsed in front of me. I didn't ask for your help. You didn't have to. They glared at each other. The monitor kept beeping. Lena looked away first. I don't need your pity. Good, because I don't pity you. Then what is this? Adrian didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell a stranger that watching her fight so hard just to survive made him feel something he hadn't felt in years? That for the first time since his wife died, he felt like maybe there was a point to any of this? I have a daughter, he said instead. She's 6. Her name is Sophie. Lena frowned, confused by the sudden change in topic. When my wife died, people kept trying to help. They'd bring casseroles and offer to babysit and tell me everything was going to be okay, and I hated it. I hated feeling like a charity case. I hated that they could see how much I was drowning. He paused. But looking back, I don't know what I would have done without them. I would have fallen apart. Sophie would have fallen apart. So yeah, maybe you don't want my help. Maybe you think you can do this alone. But you don't have to. Lena was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough. Why do you care? I don't know, but I do. She closed her eyes. If I say yes, it's just until I get back on my feet. A week, maybe 2. Okay. I'm not a charity case. I know. And I'm paying you back every cent. Sure. She opened her eyes, suspicious. You're agreeing too easily. Do you want me to argue? No, I just... She trailed off, shaking her head. This is crazy. Yeah, we've established that. Despite everything, she laughed. A real laugh, tired and ragged, but genuine. The nurse came in to check on her. Adrian stepped out into the hallway, pulling out his phone. He had 3 missed calls from Marcus and a text that just said, "What the hell is happening?" He typed back, "Long story. I'll explain tomorrow." Another text came through, this one from his mother. "Vanessa called me. She said you made a scene at the fundraiser. We need to talk." Adrian deleted it without responding. He leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. It was past midnight. He should go home, get some sleep. But the thought of leaving Lena here alone in the sterile hospital room with machines beeping and strangers walking by made him stay. So he went back inside. Lena was lying down now, her eyes half closed. The monitor showed the baby's heartbeat steady and strong. "You're still here," she said. "Yeah. You don't have to stay." "I know." She didn't argue this time, just closed her eyes. Adrian settled into the uncomfortable plastic chair in the corner. His back was going to hate him tomorrow, but right now he didn't care. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, Lena's breathing evened out into sleep. Adrian watched her for a moment, this stranger who'd somehow become his responsibility in the span of a few hours. What the hell was he doing? He didn't have an answer, but for the first time in 5 years, he didn't feel like he needed one. The baby's heartbeat continued its steady rhythm. Outside, Chicago slept, and Adrian Cole, billionaire, single father, and professional emotional recluse, sat in a hospital chair and wondered if maybe, just maybe, he'd finally done something right. When dawn broke through the hospital windows, pale and gray, Adrian was still there. And so was Lena, and neither of them was alone anymore. The discharge papers came through at 9 in the morning. Lena signed them with shaking hands, still wearing the same stained work uniform from the night before. The hospital had given her a sandwich and orange juice, which she'd eaten so fast Adrian thought she might be sick. "Ready?" he asked. She looked at him like she still couldn't quite believe he was real. "I can take the bus from here. You've done enough." "The bus to where? Your apartment with no heat?" "I'll figure it out." "Lena." "What?" "Just get in the car." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her face, that stubborn pride that had probably kept her alive this long. But she was exhausted and hurting and maybe, just maybe, tired of fighting alone. "Fine," she said, "but just for a few days." Thomas was waiting outside, the car idling at the curb. He opened the door without a word, though Adrian caught the question in his eyes. "Later," that look said. "Explain later." Lena slid into the back seat carefully, one hand pressed against her stomach. Adrian got in beside her and they pulled away from the hospital into morning traffic. Chicago looked different in daylight. Harsh. The city had a way of showing all its scars when the sun came up. The potholes, the cracked sidewalks, the people huddled in doorways trying to stay warm. Lena stared out the window, her expression unreadable. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Lincoln Park." Her head snapped toward him. "Lincoln Park?" "Yeah." "You live in Lincoln Park. Is that a problem?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, no problem. Just funny, that's all." "What is?" "I've been cleaning houses in Lincoln Park for 3 years. Never thought I'd actually be staying in one." Adrian didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They drove through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer, the buildings taller, the trees more carefully maintained, the cars parked along the street worth more than most people made in a year. Lena's face got more and more closed off the farther they went. When Thomas finally pulled through the gate of Adrian's property, Lena went completely still. The house was exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire. 3 stories of stone and glass, perfectly landscaped lawn, the kind of place that showed up in architecture magazines. Adrian had bought it because his business manager said it was a good investment. He'd never really thought about what it looked like from the outside. "This is where you live," Lena said flatly. "Yeah." "With your daughter?" "Yeah." "Jesus Christ." She pressed her hand against her forehead. "I can't stay here." "Why not?" "Because look at it. Look at this place." "I know what it looks like." "I don't belong here." You need a place to stay. I have a place. It's not complicated. Everything about this is complicated. Thomas opened the door. Adrian got out first, then turned to help Lena. She ignored his hand and climbed out herself, nearly stumbling on the curved driveway. Her worn-out sneakers looked even worse against the pristine concrete. The front door opened before they reached it. Catherine Reeves stood there, immaculate as always in a gray suit, her dark hair pulled back in a bun. She was 53 years old and had been running Adrian's life for the past decade with the efficiency of a Swiss watch. "Mr. Cole," she said. Then her eyes shifted to Lena, and Adrian saw her mask slip for just a second. Surprise. Concern. Then it was gone, replaced by professional neutrality. "Catherine, this is Lena Hart. She'll be staying in the East guest room." "Of course, I've prepared everything as requested." Catherine stepped aside. "Please, come in." Lena hesitated at the threshold like she was about to walk into a trap. Adrian gently touched her elbow, guiding her inside. The foyer was all marble and dark wood, a chandelier hanging overhead that probably cost more than Lena made in 5 years. Her eyes went wide, taking it all in. "I'll show you to your room," Catherine said. They followed her up the curved staircase to the second floor. The East guest room was at the end of the hall, spacious, with huge windows overlooking the garden, a 4-poster bed with cream-colored linens, and an attached bathroom bigger than Lena's entire apartment. Lena stood in the doorway, not moving. "There are fresh towels in the bathroom," Catherine said. "If you need anything, clothing, toiletries, just let me know and I'll have it brought up." Lena's voice came out rough. "Thank you." Catherine nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Lena walked slowly into the room like she was afraid she might break something. She ran her hand along the edge of the dresser, touched the curtains, stared at the bed. "This is insane," she whispered. "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." She turned to face him. "Why are you doing this?" "I told you." "No, the real reason." Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. What was the real reason? Because he'd seen something in her eyes last night that he recognized? Because helping her made him feel less empty? Because for the first time in 5 years he'd actually wanted to do something that wasn't about business or his daughter? "I don't know," he said honestly. She studied his face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're either the nicest person I've ever met or the most suspicious." "Probably neither." "Then what are you?" "Tired," Adrian said. "Just really tired." Something in her expression softened. "Yeah, me too." They stood there for a moment, two exhausted people who'd somehow ended up in the same orbit. "I should let you rest," Adrian said finally. "Doctor said bed rest, remember?" "I remember. Catherine will bring you lunch. If you need anything before then, I'll be fine." There was that word again. Fine. Adrian was starting to hate it. He left her there and went downstairs to his study, closing the door behind him. Then he sat at his desk and put his head in his hands. What the hell was he doing? His phone buzzed. "Marcus." "Are you alive?" Marcus asked when Adrian answered. "Barely. What happened last night? 1 minute you're at a fundraiser, the next you're carrying a pregnant woman out of the building like some kind of romance novel hero." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "I don't know. She needed help." "So you brought her home?" "Yeah." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Your mother's going to lose her mind." "My mother can deal with it. She's already called me 3 times asking what's going on." "What did you tell her?" "That I have no idea. Because I don't." Marcus paused. "Who is this woman?" "Her name's Lena Hart. She was working as a janitor at the hotel. And now she's living in your house." "Temporarily." "Adrian, man, I've known you for 15 years. You don't do spontaneous. You don't do charity cases. What's really going on?" Adrian rubbed his eyes. "I saw her, and I couldn't just walk away." "Why not? You've walked away from 1,000 people before. This was different." "How?" "I don't know." Adrian's voice came out sharper than he intended. He took a breath. "I don't know, okay? But I'm not throwing a pregnant woman back on the street just because it's inconvenient." "I'm not saying you should. I'm just trying to understand." "Join the club." Marcus sighed. "All right. I'll deal with your mother. But you owe me." "Add it to the list." After he hung up, Adrian sat in the silence of his study, listening to the house settle around him. It was too big, this place, too empty. Even with Sophie running around, it always felt like a museum, beautiful and hollow. His wife had hated it. Emily had wanted something smaller, cozier. But Adrian had insisted. This house was supposed to be a statement, proof that he'd made it. Now it was just a reminder of everything he'd lost. The door cracked open. Catherine slipped inside. "How is she?" Adrian asked. "Sleeping. I checked on her 20 minutes ago." "Good." Catherine sat down across from him, something she rarely did. When she settled into a chair without being asked, it usually meant she had something to say. "Go ahead," Adrian said. "I'm not judging. But I've been working for you long enough to know when you're acting on instinct instead of logic." "Is that a bad thing?" "Not necessarily, but it can get messy." Adrian leaned back in his chair. She was collapsing from exhaustion and malnutrition in the middle of a hotel ballroom, Catherine. What was I supposed to do? Call an ambulance, make sure she got to a hospital, write a check to cover her medical bills. I did all that. And then you brought her here. Yeah. Why? It was the same question everyone kept asking, and Adrian still didn't have a good answer. Or maybe he did, but saying it out loud felt too raw. "Have you seen her apartment?" he asked instead. "No. One room, no heat, probably no food. She's a week away from giving birth, and she was working double shifts just to keep the lights on." He met Catherine's eyes. "Could you have walked away from that?" "No," Catherine admitted. "But I'm not you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're a very careful man, Adrian. You don't let people in. You don't take risks on strangers. The last 5 years you've built walls so high I wasn't sure anything could get through them." And this woman got through them in one night. Adrian didn't have a response to that. Catherine stood. "I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying be careful, for her sake and yours." After she left, Adrian sat alone with his thoughts until a small voice from the doorway made him look up. "Daddy?" Sophie stood there in her school uniform, her backpack hanging off one shoulder. She had Emily's eyes, bright, curious, always asking questions Adrian didn't know how to answer. "Hey, sweetheart." He checked his watch, 3:30. School must have just gotten out. "How was your day?" "Fine. Mrs. Patterson said you have a meeting with her next week." "About what?" "My math homework." Sophie made a face. "I don't like fractions." "Nobody likes fractions." "Did you?" "Hated them." She grinned, then noticed something in his expression. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just tired." Catherine said we have a guest. Of course she did. "Yeah. Her name's Lena." "Is she your friend?" "Sort of." What does sort of mean? Adrian had learned a long time ago that trying to hide things from his daughter was pointless. She was too smart, too observant. She saw everything. "She's someone who needs help," he said carefully. "So she's staying with us for a little while." Sophie considered this. "Like when Grandma stayed after she broke her ankle?" "Something like that." "Okay." She adjusted her backpack. "Can I meet her?" "She's resting right now. Maybe later." "Okay," Sophie said again. Then, because she was 6 and her attention span was limited, "Can I have a snack?" "Go ask Catherine." She ran off, her footsteps echoing through the empty house. Adrian listened to her go, then turned back to his desk. He had contracts to review, calls to return, a business to run. But his mind kept drifting upstairs to the woman sleeping in his guest room. This was going to get complicated. He could feel it. Around 6, Catherine knocked on his study door. "Dinner's ready. Should I bring a tray up to Ms. Hart?" "No. See if she'll come down." Catherine raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. 10 minutes later, Adrian heard footsteps on the stairs. Lena appeared in the dining room doorway, looking uncomfortable in the same clothes from yesterday. Her hair was damp. She must have showered. "You didn't have to come down," Adrian said. "We could have brought something up." "I'm not an invalid." "Nobody said you were." Sophie chose that moment to come barreling into the room, stopping short when she saw Lena. "Hi," Sophie said. "Are you Lena?" Lena blinked, clearly not expecting a 6-year-old. "Yeah, hi." "I'm Sophie, that's my dad." She pointed at Adrian. "Are you really staying here?" "Sophie," Adrian warned. "What?" "I'm just asking." "It's okay." Lena said. She crouched down, carefully, one hand on the table for balance, until she was at Sophie's eye level. Yeah, I'm staying here for a little bit. Is that okay with you? Sophie studied her seriously. Do you like pizza? Sure. Good, because that's what we're having tonight. She looked at Adrian. Right, Daddy? Right, Adrian confirmed. They sat down at the long dining table, Adrian at one end, Sophie chattering away in the middle, and Lena at the other end, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The pizza arrived from Adrian's usual place, the kind of expensive artisanal pizza that came with arugula and prosciutto. Lena took one slice and ate it slowly, like she was afraid there wouldn't be more. You can have as much as you want, Adrian said. She looked up, caught. I know. Do you? Her jaw tightened, but she took another slice. Sophie filled the silence, talking about her day at school, her friend Madison, who was mean sometimes but funny other times, the hamster in her classroom that she wanted to bring home, but Adrian kept saying no to. Why can't we have a hamster? Sophie asked for probably the 100th time. Because hamsters smell, Adrian said. They do not. They do. Trust me. How do you know? You've never had one. I had one when I was your age. It smelled terrible. Sophie turned to Lena. Did you ever have a hamster? Lena shook her head. No, but I had a goldfish once. Really? What was its name? Gerald? Sophie giggled. That's a weird name for a fish. I thought it was fancy. What happened to Gerald? He died after about 2 weeks. Turns out I wasn't great at remembering to feed him. Oh. Sophie looked sad for a moment, then bounced back. When's your baby coming? Sophie, Adrian said sharply. What? She's pregnant, I can see. Lena actually smiled. Soon. A couple weeks, probably. Is it a boy or a girl? I don't know. I wanted it to be a surprise. My mom died when I was born, Sophie said matter-of-factly. The room went silent. Adrian felt his chest tighten. Sophie rarely talked about Emily, and when she did, it was always so casual, like she was discussing the weather. I'm sorry, Lena said quietly. Sophie shrugged. It's okay. I don't really remember her. Daddy has pictures, though. She was pretty. I'm sure she was. Do you have a husband? Sophie, that's enough questions, Adrian said. I'm just talking. We'll talk about something else. Sophie huffed, but moved on to a story about art class. Lena caught Adrian's eye across the table, something like understanding passing between them. After dinner, Sophie went upstairs to do homework. Adrian started to follow, but Lena's voice stopped him. Thank you. He turned. For what? Dinner. The room. All of it. You don't have to keep thanking me. Yeah, I do. She stood, her hand going automatically to her back. I'm not used to people doing things without wanting something in return. I don't want anything. Everyone wants something. Not from you. She studied him, that same searching look from earlier. You're a weird guy. You know that? I've been told. Your daughter's sweet. She has her moments. She misses her mom. Adrian's throat tightened. Yeah. How long has it been? 6 years. Emily died during childbirth, complications. Lena's expression shifted to something painful. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it easier. No, it didn't. They stood there in the empty dining room, two people carrying grief they didn't know how to share. I should get some rest, Lena said finally. Yeah, good night. Night. He watched her climb the stairs slowly, exhaustion in every step. Then he went to check on Sophie. She was sprawled on her bed, math homework scattered around her. I still don't get fractions, she announced. Let me see. They worked through the problems together, Adrian's rusty math skills coming back slowly. When they finished, Sophie looked up at him. Is Lena going to stay for a long time? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope she does. I like her. You just met her. So, I liked you right away too when I was born. Adrian smiled despite himself. You don't remember being born. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Do too. He ruffled her hair. Get ready for bed. Fine. She paused. Daddy? Yeah? Are you happy she's here? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? You smiled at dinner. You don't smile a lot. out of the mouths of children. Yeah, Adrian said quietly. I guess I am, Sophie grinned. Good. Now go away so I can change into my pajamas. Later that night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Tomorrow, he'd have to deal with his mother, and probably Vanessa, and whoever else had heard about what happened at the fundraiser. Let them talk. Around 2 in the morning, he heard footsteps in the hallway. He got up, pulling on a t-shirt, and found Lena in the kitchen, standing in front of the open refrigerator. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She jumped, spinning around. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I was already up. She turned back to the fridge. I was hungry. I know I just ate, but... Lena, you're pregnant. You're supposed to be hungry. He walked over. What do you want? I don't know. Everything looks so fancy. Adrian looked at the contents of his refrigerator. Organic produce, expensive cheeses, leftovers from meals Catherine had prepared. It's just food. Not to me, it's not. He pulled out some bread, peanut butter, and jelly. How about a sandwich? Really? What? You're a billionaire, and you're offering me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You got a problem with PB&J? She laughed, a real laugh that made something warm spread through Adrian's chest. No, no problem. They sat at the kitchen island, Lena eating her sandwich while Adrian made coffee he probably shouldn't drink this late. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Sure. Why aren't you married? I mean, you're rich, you're good-looking, you have a kid. Most guys like you would have remarried by now. Most guys like me are assholes. Fair point. She took another bite. But seriously, Adrian considered the question. I was engaged, actually, about 2 years ago. What happened? She wanted me to send Sophie to boarding school. Lena's eyes widened. What? Said it would be better for everyone if Sophie got a proper education away from home, that we could have a real marriage without a kid constantly getting in the way. Please tell me you told her to go to hell. More or less? Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The house was quiet around them, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of wind outside. What about you? Adrian asked. The father. What happened? Lena's expression closed off. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Asshole. Yeah. She stared at her sandwich. We weren't serious or anything, just, I don't know, I was lonely. He seemed nice. Turns out nice was an act. Did he offer to help at all? Offered to pay for an abortion. When I said no, he said I was on my own. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. Haven't heard from him since. What's his name? Why? So I know who to hit if I ever run into him. She smiled sadly. Derek Thompson. But don't bother, he's not worth it. Still. You barely know me and you're ready to defend my honor. What is that about? I don't like bullies. Is that what I am to you? Someone who needs defending? No, you're someone who's been fighting alone for too long. Her eyes got shiny. She looked away quickly, wiping at them. I should get back to bed. Lena, I'm fine. There was that word again. I'm not used to people being nice to me. It's weird. Get used to it. She looked at him for a long moment, then she stood, wincing slightly. Back still hurting? Adrian asked. It's fine. Stop saying that. Stop asking questions you know the answer to. He stood too. Sit down. What? Sit down. I'll help. Adrian, just sit. She hesitated, then lowered herself back onto the stool. Adrian moved behind her, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. He felt her tense. Relax, he said quietly. I don't know how. Try. He started massaging her shoulders, working out the knots he could feel under his fingers. She was so tense it was a miracle she could move at all. Slowly, gradually, she started to relax. Her head dropped forward, a small sound escaping her throat. That okay? Adrian asked. Yeah, she breathed. Yeah. He kept going, moving down to her lower back, where she'd been holding all her pain. This close, he could smell her shampoo, something cheap and floral from the guest bathroom. It shouldn't have affected him, but it did. When had he last touched someone like this? Not in a clinical way, not a handshake or a pat on the shoulder, but Really touched them? Too long. Thank you, Lena whispered. You keep saying that. I keep meaning it. His hand stilled on her back. She turned her head slightly, looking at him over her shoulder. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something neither of them was ready to name. I should, Lena started. Yeah. She stood, the moment breaking. Good night, Adrian. Good night. He watched her leave, then stood alone in his kitchen at 2 a.m, wondering what the hell he'd gotten himself into and why he didn't want to get out of it. The next morning, Adrian woke to his phone buzzing with texts he didn't want to read. His mother had apparently assembled a full dossier on the situation and demanded he come to brunch. Alone. He ignored it. Downstairs, he found Sophie and Lena in the kitchen. Sophie was explaining something about her school project with the kind of intense seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster, and Lena was listening like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard. And then Mrs. Patterson said we have to make a diorama about ecosystems, which is basically just a shoebox with stuff in it, right? But Madison wants to do the rainforest and I want to do the ocean, so now we have to compromise, which Daddy says means nobody gets what they want. That's not exactly what I said, Adrian interjected. Sophie looked up. Close enough? Lena smiled at him over her coffee cup. She looked better this morning, less pale, less exhausted. Morning. Morning. Sleep okay? Better than I have in months, actually. Catherine appeared with breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit. Lena stared at the spread like it might vanish if she blinked. Eat, Adrian said. Doctor's orders, remember? I remember. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. Your mother is calling me. Make it stop. Adrian texted back. Tell her I'm busy. With what? Living my life. Sophie finished her breakfast and went to get ready for school. Once she was gone, the kitchen felt too quiet. I need to go see my apartment today, Lena said. Adrian looked up. Why? Because I need clothes, and I want to check on things. I can have Catherine pick up whatever you need. I'd rather do it myself. Lena, I'm not helpless, Adrian. I can go to my own apartment. He recognized that tone. It was the same one she'd used at the hospital when she'd insisted she was fine. Pride mixed with stubbornness, a combination that had probably kept her alive but was also going to drive him crazy. Fine, he said, but I'm coming with you. You don't need to. I'm coming with you. They stared at each other across the kitchen island. You're really annoying, you know that? Lena said. So I've been told. Thomas drove them to Pilsen an hour later. The neighborhood looked different in daylight. Tired buildings, chain-link fences, murals painted on brick walls trying to make something beautiful out of nothing. Kids played in a small park despite the cold, their breath forming clouds in the air. Lena's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. The stairwell smelled like old cooking oil and something Adrian couldn't quite identify. The walls were tagged with graffiti, and half the lights were out. This is it, Lena said, unlocking a door that stuck in its frame. Adrian followed her inside and felt something crack in his chest. The apartment was worse than he'd imagined. 1 room, maybe 200 square feet total. A twin mattress on the floor in the corner with a blanket that had holes in it. A hot plate on a wooden crate that served as a kitchen. 1 window with a view of the brick wall next door. And yeah, a radiator that was clearly broken because the temperature inside was barely warmer than outside. This is where you've been living, Adrian said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Lena's voice was defensive. It's not much, but it's mine. Adrian walked to the corner where she'd set up what passed for a nursery. A cardboard box lined with a yellow blanket, some second-hand baby clothes folded neatly inside. On the crate next to the hot plate was a can of beans and half a loaf of bread. This is all the food you have? I was going to go shopping after my shift. Before, everything. He turned to look at her. She was standing in the middle of the room with her arms wrapped around herself, trying to look brave and failing. How long have you been living like this? 6 months, since I couldn't afford my old place anymore. And before that? Before that, I had a studio in Rogers Park. It was nicer, but then I lost my day job and she trailed off. Look, I don't need your pity, okay? I've been managing. This isn't managing. This is surviving, barely. What do you want me to say? That it sucks? It does. That I hate it? I do. But it's what I can afford, so it's where I live. Her eyes flashed. Not all of us get to inherit construction empires. I didn't inherit anything. I built that company from nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you build it while pregnant and sleeping on a mattress on the floor with no heat? Adrian stopped. She was right. He'd had advantages she'd never had. A college education, connections, a wife whose life insurance policy had given him the capital to expand when he needed it. Yeah, he'd worked hard, but he'd never had to choose between food and rent. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Lena looked surprised. What? You're right. I don't know what it's like. I shouldn't have. He gestured vaguely at the apartment. Just tell me what you need to pack. She studied him for a moment, then moved to a garbage bag in the corner that apparently served as her closet. I don't have much. That was an understatement. 2 pairs of jeans, a few t-shirts, 1 sweater with a hole in the sleeve, some underwear and socks. That was it. Her entire wardrobe fit in one bag. What about the baby stuff? Adrian asked. That's it? She pointed at the box with the yellow blanket. I was going to get more after he was born, when I had the money. Adrian pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Lena asked. Calling Catherine. Why? Because you need clothes and baby supplies, and you're not going to get them from a thrift store. Adrian, this isn't charity. This is common sense. I told you, I'm paying you back. Fine, keep a tab. I don't care. He put the phone to his ear. Catherine, I need you to order some things. Lena sank down onto the mattress, watching him rattle off a list. Maternity clothes, toiletries, diapers, bottles, actual furniture for a nursery. When he hung up, she was crying. Hey, he said, alarmed. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. She wiped at her eyes. I've been trying so hard to do this by myself, and then you show up and just fix everything in 5 minutes. It's not fair. What's not fair? That I spent 6 months killing myself trying to survive, and you can just throw money at it and make it go away. Adrian sat down next to her on the mattress. It was lumpy and uncomfortable, and he hated that she'd been sleeping on it. You're right, he said. It's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. You shouldn't have to live like this. You shouldn't have been working while 8 months pregnant. The father should have stepped up. The system should have helped you. But none of that happened, and now you're here. So what? You're my white knight riding in to save me? No, I'm just someone who has more than he needs, and you have less than you deserve. That's it. She looked at him, tears still sliding down her face. Why do you care? I don't know, but I do. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. They sat there on that terrible mattress in that terrible apartment, and Adrian realized he'd never felt more connected to another person in his life. Not since Emily. The thought terrified him. We should go, he said, standing abruptly. Get your stuff. The drive back to Lincoln Park was quiet. Lena stared out the window, her garbage bag of clothes on her lap like she was afraid to let it go. Adrian's mind was racing. He was in dangerous territory here. He could feel it. This wasn't just about helping someone anymore. This was something else, something he wasn't ready to examine. When they got back to the house, Sophie was home from school, bouncing around the foyer. Lena, can you help me with my diorama? Daddy's terrible at art. I'm not terrible, Adrian protested. You are, though, Sophie said cheerfully. Remember when you tried to help with my Valentine's cards? They looked like zombies made them. Lena laughed despite herself. Sure, I can help. They disappeared into the living room, leaving Adrian standing alone with Thomas, who was trying very hard not to look amused. Not a word, Adrian said. Wouldn't dream of it, sir. Over the next few days, the house started to change. Lena's presence filled spaces that had been empty for too long. She helped Sophie with homework at the kitchen table. She laughed at bad jokes. She asked questions about the business that were smarter than most of his investors' questions. And Adrian found himself looking for excuses to be wherever she was. It was Sophie who noticed first, of course. You like her, she announced one evening while Adrian was tucking her into bed. What? Lena, you like her. She's nice. Of course I like her. No, I mean you like her. The way Prince Eric likes Ariel. Sophie, it's okay, Daddy. I think she likes you too. We're not having this conversation. Why not? Because you're 6. So, I have eyes. Adrian sighed. Good night, Sophie. Good night, Daddy. She grinned up at him. But I'm right. He closed her door and stood in the hallway, trying to ignore the fact that his 6-year-old daughter had just called him out on feelings he wasn't ready to admit to himself. His phone rang. His mother. Again. He answered because avoiding her forever wasn't an option. Mother, don't mother me. We need to talk. About? About the pregnant woman living in your house that you've been hiding from me. I'm not hiding anything, and her name is Lena. I don't care what her name is. What I care about is that you've moved a complete stranger into your home where my granddaughter lives. She's not a stranger, not anymore. Adrian. His mother's voice took on that steel edge she used when she expected to be obeyed. I'm coming over tomorrow. We're going to discuss this like adults. There's nothing to discuss. I'll be there at 10. Make sure you're home. She hung up before he could argue. Adrian found Lena in the guest room, reading a book Catherine had brought her. She looked up when he knocked. Everything okay? She asked. My mother's coming tomorrow. Lena's expression changed. Ah. She wants to meet you. Well, no. She wants to interrogate you and probably convince me to throw you out. Maybe I should go. Don't. The word came out more forceful than he intended. Please, don't. Adrian, I'm not trying to cause problems with your family. You're not causing anything. My mother is just controlling. She thinks she knows what's best for everyone. And what's best is not me living here. What's best is me making my own decisions. Lena set down her book. Your daughter said something to me today. What? She said her grandmother doesn't like most people, that she's mean sometimes. Sophie said that? In more diplomatic 6-year-old terms, but yeah. Adrian rubbed his face. My mother isn't mean, she's just protective. After Emily died, she tried to take over everything, wanted me to move back home, let her raise Sophie, run my life. I had to fight her for 2 years to get her to back off. And now I'm here and she thinks you're making another mistake. You're not a mistake. The words hung in the air between them. Adrian, I need to tell you something, he said, cutting her off. About Sophie's mother. About Emily. Lena waited. We met in college. Got married too young, probably, but we were happy. Or I thought we were. He sat down on the edge of the bed. When she got pregnant, something changed. She got scared. Really scared. Kept saying she wasn't ready, that we'd made a mistake. Postpartum depression? Maybe. We never got to find out. She had complications during delivery, started bleeding, and they couldn't stop it. His voice went flat. She died 6 hours after Sophie was born. I'm so sorry. My mother blamed me, said if I'd been more supportive, if I'd gotten Emily better doctors, if I'd done 1,000 things differently, she might have lived. He looked at Lena. Maybe she was right. You don't believe that. Some days I do. Lena shifted on the bed, moving closer. Can I tell you something? Yeah. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I thought about not keeping it. Thought about it for weeks. She put her hand on her stomach. But then I felt him move and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And I've been scared every day since that I'm going to mess this up, that I'm not going to be enough. You're going to be a great mother. How do you know? Because you're still here. You didn't give up. That's what matters. She smiled, but there were tears in her eyes again. You're a good man, Adrian Cole. I'm really not. Yeah, you are. They sat there in the quiet of the guest room, and Adrian felt that pull again, that dangerous, terrifying pull towards someone he barely knew but couldn't seem to stay away from. I should let you rest, he said, standing. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for telling me about Emily. He nodded and left before he could do something stupid like kiss her. His mother arrived at 10 sharp the next morning, dressed like she was attending a board meeting instead of visiting her son's house. Catherine showed her into the study where Adrian was pretending to work. Mother. Adrian. She sat down without being invited, her handbag positioned perfectly on her lap. Where is she? Upstairs, resting. How convenient. What do you want me to say? I want you to explain what you're thinking, bringing a random woman into this house. She's not random. She needed help. There are shelters for that. She's not going to a shelter. His mother's eyes narrowed. What is she to you? A friend. Don't lie to me. I know you, Adrian. You don't make friends. You barely talk to the ones you have. Then maybe it's time I changed that. By playing savior to some pregnant girl who's probably after your money? She's not after anything. She didn't even want my help. Of course she'd say that. It makes her seem noble. Adrian felt his temper rising. You don't know her. And you do? You've known her for what? A week? 5 days. Oh, well then, that changes everything. Why are you really here, Mother? She leaned forward. Because I watched you fall apart after Emily died. I watched you turn into a shell of yourself. And just when I think you're finally getting stable, you do something like this. Like what? Help someone? Like let someone in. Someone who's going to leave or die or disappoint you, just like Emily did. Emily didn't disappoint me. She died. And you've been punishing yourself for it ever since. Adrian stood up. This conversation is over. No, it's not. His mother stood too. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. Then what do you need? The question hung there. What did he need? He'd spent 5 years convinced he didn't need anything except his daughter and his business. That had been enough. It had to be enough. But then Lena showed up and suddenly it wasn't. I need you to trust me, Adrian said quietly. His mother looked at him for a long moment. I want to meet her, properly. Mother, if she's going to be living under your roof near my granddaughter, I'm going to meet her. Before Adrian could argue, there was a knock on the study door. Lena stood there, one hand on the doorframe like she needed it for support. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Catherine said. She saw Adrian's mother and stopped. Oh, you must be Lena, his mother said, her voice cool. I'm Patricia Cole, Adrian's mother. Lena straightened up, and Adrian saw her face shift into something guarded. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Cole. Is it? Patricia's eyes swept over her, taking in the borrowed maternity clothes, the exhaustion still visible despite days of rest. My son tells me you're staying here temporarily. That's right. And when exactly do you plan to leave? Mother, Adrian warned. Lena held up a hand. It's fine. She looked Patricia in the eye. I'm leaving as soon as I can get back on my feet. I don't want to impose. How thoughtful. I know what you're thinking, Lena said, that I'm some kind of con artist taking advantage of your son. But I'm not. I didn't ask for his help. I don't want his money. I just needed a safe place to have my baby, and he offered. How fortunate for you. Mother, that's enough, Adrian said. But Lena wasn't done. You're right to be suspicious. If I were you, I would be too. But your son is a good man who saw someone in trouble and helped. That's it. There's no ulterior motive, no scheme, just kindness. Patricia studied her. You're very articulate for a janitor. I have a degree in social work, actually, from DePaul. Graduated with honors. Lena's voice was steady. I was working as a case manager before the nonprofit I worked for lost funding. I've been doing whatever jobs I can find since then. Cleaning, waitressing, anything that pays. Because that's what you do when you don't have a trust fund to fall back on. The room went silent. Adrian wanted to cheer. His mother looked like she'd been slapped. I see, Patricia said finally. Do you? Lena asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to protect your son from someone you think is beneath him. And maybe I am. Maybe by your standards, I'm nobody. But I'm not a liar and I'm not a thief, and I'm not going to apologize for accepting help when I needed it. She turned and walked out. Adrian and his mother stared at each other. Well, Patricia said, she has a spine. I'll give her that. You were testing her. Of course I was testing her, and she passed. So you're done? You'll leave her alone? His mother picked up her handbag. I didn't say that, but she's more interesting than I expected. She headed for the door, then paused. Be careful, Adrian. Why? Because you're looking at her the way you used to look at Emily, and we both know how that ended. She left, leaving Adrian standing alone in his study with her words echoing in his head. He found Lena in her room, sitting on the bed with her hands shaking. That was stupid, she said when she saw him. I shouldn't have talked to her like that. Are you kidding? That was amazing. I probably made everything worse. You stood up for yourself. That's not making things worse. She looked up at him. Is she always like that? Pretty much. How do you deal with it? Poorly. He sat down next to her. You okay? Yeah, just... She laughed shakily. I'm not usually that confrontational. I don't know what came over me. Pregnancy hormones? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of people assuming the worst about me. Adrian reached over and took her hand. It was an impulse, something he did without thinking. Her fingers were cold. For what it's worth, he said, I don't assume the worst about you. What do you assume? That you're brave and stubborn and stronger than you think you are. She looked down at their joined hands. You barely know me. I know enough. Do you? He should let go of her hand. He should stand up and leave and put some distance between them before this turned into something neither of them could take back. But he didn't. Tell me something, he said instead. Something real. Like what? Anything, something nobody else knows. Lena was quiet for a moment. I'm scared. Of what? Everything. Labor. Being a mother. Failing. Her voice dropped. Being alone again. You're not alone. I will be, eventually. You're going to realize how complicated this is, and you're going to ask me to leave, and I'll be back in that apartment with no heat and no food and a baby I don't know how to take care of. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. Watch me. He squeezed her hand. You're not going back there. I don't care what it takes. Why? She asked, and there was something raw in her voice. Why do you care so much? Because when I look at you, I feel alive for the first time in 5 years. Because your laugh makes this house feel like a home. Because I'm falling for you, and I don't know how to stop. But he couldn't say any of that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because someone should, he said instead. It wasn't the answer she wanted. He could see it in her face, but it was the only one he could give without admitting things he wasn't ready to admit. A moment passed, then another. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, Lena said finally. For the baby. They want to do an ultrasound. Okay. Will you come with me? The question caught him off guard. You want me to? Yeah, if that's okay. Of course it's okay. What? She smiled, and something in Adrian's chest cracked open a little wider. They were in trouble, both of them, and neither of them seemed to care. The doctor's office was in a medical building downtown, the kind of place with abstract art on the walls and magazines nobody read in the waiting room. Adrian sat next to Lena, watching her fill out paperwork with hands that wouldn't stay steady. You okay? He asked quietly. Just nervous. About what? What if something's wrong? What if all those months of not eating right, working too hard, what if I hurt him? Adrian put his hand over hers, stilling the pen. You did what you had to do to survive. That's not your fault. Tell that to him if he's not okay. Before Adrian could respond, a nurse called Lena's name. They followed her back through a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and into a small exam room with an ultrasound machine in the corner. Dr. Williams will be right in, the nurse said cheerfully. You can lie back on the table, and we'll get started. Lena climbed onto the exam table, and Adrian stood awkwardly near the door until she looked at him. You can sit, she said. Where? There's a chair, next to me. He pulled the chair closer, and Lena reached for his hand without looking at him. Her palm was sweaty against his. Dr. Williams came in a few minutes later, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficiency in every movement. Lena, good to see you back. And you must be... She looked at Adrian expectantly. Adrian, He stopped. What was he? A friend. The father? The doctor asked. No, Lena said quickly. The father's not in the picture. I see. Well, any support is good support. Dr. Williams washed her hands and pulled on gloves. Let's see how this baby's doing, shall we? She squeezed gel onto Lena's exposed stomach, and Adrian tried not to think about how intimate this felt. Him sitting here, watching this, holding her hand like he had any right to be part of this moment. The doctor moved the wand across Lena's belly, and the monitor flickered to life. Static at first, then shapes that didn't make sense to Adrian's untrained eye. There we go, Dr. Williams said, adjusting something. And there's your baby. Adrian stared at the screen. He'd seen ultrasounds before with Emily, but that had been 6 years ago and hazed by grief. This was different. This was now and real, and the tiny form on the screen was moving. Everything looks good, the doctor continued, moving the wand. Nice strong heartbeat. Good size. He's head down, which is what we want to see at this stage. He's okay? Lena's voice was tight. He's more than okay. He's perfect. Lena's grip on Adrian's hand tightened, and when he looked at her, tears were streaming down her face. Can you... She had to stop and swallow. Can you tell how much longer? Based on what I'm seeing, I'd say you have about a week, maybe less. Are you having any contractions? Sometimes little ones, I think. That's normal, Braxton Hicks. But if they get regular or painful, you need to come in immediately. Understood? Yes. Dr. Williams printed out some images from the ultrasound and handed them to Lena. You're doing great. Keep resting, keep eating, and I'll see you next week, unless the baby decides to come sooner. After she left, Lena lay there staring at the ultrasound pictures like she couldn't quite believe they were real. You okay? Adrian asked. He's perfect, she whispered. After everything, he's perfect. Yeah, he is. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them that Adrian couldn't name, something bigger than gratitude, deeper than friendship. Thank you, she said, for being here. Where else would I be? They drove home in comfortable silence, Lena clutching the ultrasound pictures like they were made of gold. When they got back to the house, Sophie was waiting in the foyer, practically vibrating with excitement. Can I see? Can I see the baby pictures? Lena laughed and showed her the ultrasounds. Sophie studied them seriously. He looks like a peanut, she announced. Sophie, Adrian warned. What? He does. A cute peanut, though. Thanks, I think, Lena said. Over the next few days, something shifted in the house. Adrian started coming home earlier from work, making excuses about needing to check on things when really he just wanted to see Lena. They'd have dinner together, him, Lena, and Sophie, and it felt almost normal, like a family. The thought scared the hell out of him. He was in his study late one evening when Marcus called. So I heard an interesting rumor, Marcus said without preamble. What? That you've been leaving work at 5 o'clock. Every day, for a week. So? So in the 15 years I've known you, you've never left work at 5 o'clock. Ever. Even when Sophie was a baby. Adrian didn't respond. Adrian. What? What's going on with you and this woman? Nothing's going on. You're a terrible liar. We're friends. Right. And I'm the Pope. Marcus paused. Look, I'm not judging, but you need to be careful. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because everyone can see what you apparently can't. You're falling for her. I'm not. Yes, you are. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's actually good. But you need to think about what happens when the baby comes and she has her own life to figure out. She's staying here. For how long? As long as she needs to. And what if she decides she doesn't need to anymore? What if she wants to leave? The question hit Adrian harder than it should have. He hadn't let himself think about that possibility. The idea of Lena leaving, of the house going back to being empty and quiet, made something twist in his chest. I should go, he said. Adrian, I'll talk to you tomorrow. He hung up and sat in the dark study, Marcus's words echoing in his head. He was falling for her. He knew it. He'd probably known it since that first night at the hospital, but admitting it felt like stepping off a cliff. What if she didn't feel the same way? What if she was just grateful for the help and nothing more? What if he was reading everything wrong? A knock on the door interrupted his spiral. Come in. Lena opened the door, backlit by the hallway light. Hey, you okay? You've been in here for hours. Yeah, just thinking. About? Nothing important. She gave him a look that said she knew he was lying but wasn't going to push. Can't sleep. Back hurting again? Yeah. And the baby's doing acrobatics. Come here. She walked over to his desk and Adrian stood, gesturing to his chair. Sit. What are you? Just sit. She lowered herself into the chair and Adrian moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders like he had that night in the kitchen. This time she didn't tense up. She just sighed and let her head drop forward. You're really good at this, she murmured. Emily had back problems when she was pregnant. I got a lot of practice. Do you miss her? The question caught him off guard. Yeah, sometimes. What was she like? Adrian's hand stilled for a moment, then kept moving. Stubborn, smart, she laughed at terrible jokes. She wanted to save the world. Sounds like she was special. She was. He paused. But she's gone. And I can't spend the rest of my life mourning her. Is that what you've been doing? Yeah, pretty much. Lena was quiet for a moment. What changed? You, he wanted to say. You changed everything. But instead he said, I got tired of being alone. She turned in the chair to look at him, and they were suddenly close, closer than they'd been before. Adrian could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, the way her lips parted slightly like she was about to say something but couldn't find the words. Adrian, she whispered. Yeah? I think I'm... A sharp gasp cut her off. She doubled over, her hand flying to her stomach. Lena, what's wrong? I don't know. It just... Another gasp. That hurt. Braxton Hicks? I don't think so. This is different. She tried to stand and her legs buckled. Adrian caught her, his heart hammering. Okay, we need to get you to the hospital. It might be nothing. It might... She cried out, her face going white. Oh no. What? I think my water just broke. Adrian's brain went into overdrive. This was happening. Right now. The baby was coming and they needed to move. Can you walk? I don't know. Maybe. Another contraction hit her, stronger this time. She grabbed onto Adrian like he was the only thing keeping her upright. Thomas! Adrian yelled. Thomas, I need the car now! He heard footsteps running, voices calling out. Catherine appeared in the doorway. What's happening? She's in labor. Get my phone. Call Dr. Williams. Tell her we're on our way. Catherine disappeared. Thomas materialized with the car keys already in hand. I've got the car running, sir. Adrian scooped Lena up. She was too light, still too light, and carried her through the house. Sophie was at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, eyes wide. Daddy? What's wrong? The baby's coming, sweetheart. Catherine's going to stay with you. Is Lena okay? She's going to be fine. Go back to bed. He didn't wait to see if she listened. Outside, the February air was brutal, but Adrian barely felt it. He got Lena into the back seat and climbed in next to her. Drive fast, he told Thomas. The city blurred past them, streetlights streaking through the windows. Lena was breathing hard, her hand crushing Adrian's. It's too early, she gasped between contractions. He's not supposed to come yet. You're at 38 weeks. That's full term. He's ready. But I'm not. I'm not ready. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't... A contraction cut her off, and she screamed. The sound tore through Adrian like a knife. How far are we? He called to Thomas. 5 minutes, sir. 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Lena was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. Adrian held her hand and felt completely, utterly helpless. Look at me, he said. Lena, look at me. She focused on him, her eyes wild with pain and fear. You can do this, he said. I know you can. I can't. You've survived for months on almost nothing. You've worked yourself to exhaustion. You've fought for this baby every single day. You can do this. I'm scared. I know, but I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. The hospital came into view, bright lights in the darkness. Thomas pulled up to the emergency entrance, and within seconds there were nurses with a wheelchair, doctors asking questions, everything moving too fast. They took Lena straight to labor and delivery. Adrian started to follow, but a nurse stopped him. Are you the father? No, but family only in the delivery room. She doesn't have any family. I'm all she's got. The nurse looked at Lena, who was being transferred to a bed. Is he coming in? She asked. Lena's eyes found Adrian's across the room. Yes. Please, I need him. The nurse nodded. All right, but you need to gown up. They handed Adrian scrubs and pointed him to a bathroom. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely tie the strings. When he came out, they'd already hooked Lena up to monitors, the steady beep of the baby's heartbeat filling the room. Dr. Williams appeared calm and efficient. All right, Lena, let's see where we are. The examination took less than a minute. When the doctor looked up, her expression was serious. You're already at 8 centimeters. This baby's coming fast. How fast? Lena asked. An hour, maybe less. The next 45 minutes were a blur of pain and panic. Lena's contractions came faster, harder, each one worse than the last. Adrian stayed by her side, letting her squeeze his hand until he thought the bones might break. I can't do this, she sobbed at one point. I can't. It hurts too much. You're doing it. You're already doing it. I want to stop. I know. But you can't stop now. He's almost here. Dr. Williams checked again. Okay, Lena. Next contraction, I need you to push. I can't. Yes, you can. When I say push, you push. Understood? The contraction built, a wave of pain that made Lena scream. Now! Push! Lena pushed, her face red, every muscle straining. Adrian held her hand and felt utterly useless. This was her fight. All he could do was watch. Good. Again. Another push. And another. Time lost meaning. There was only the sound of Lena's breathing, the doctors calling out instructions, the monitors beeping. Then suddenly, silence. Complete, terrifying silence. What's wrong? Lena gasped. Why isn't he crying? Dr. Williams didn't answer. She was working fast, doing something Adrian couldn't see. The other nurses moved in, their faces professionally blank. What's happening? Adrian demanded. Is he okay? His heart rate dropped, one of the nurses said quietly. We need to get the NICU team in here, now. Dr. Williams' voice was sharp. Adrian felt like he'd been punched in the chest. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not after everything. Lena was crying, reaching out. Please, is he okay? Let me see him. I need to see him. More people flooded into the room. Equipment, urgent voices. Adrian couldn't process any of it. Then, a sound, weak at first, then stronger. A cry. A baby's cry. The room seemed to exhale all at once. There we go, Dr. Williams said, and Adrian heard the relief in her voice. There's our fighter. She held up a tiny, red, screaming baby boy. Lena was sobbing, laughing and sobbing at the same time. He's okay? He's really okay? He's perfect. The doctor placed the baby on Lena's chest. A little dramatic entrance, but perfect. Adrian stared at the baby, this tiny, furious, absolutely perfect human being, and felt something break open inside him that he didn't know was still locked up. Lena was touching the baby's face, his hands, like she couldn't believe he was real. Hi, she whispered. Hi, baby. I'm your mom. I've been waiting to meet you. The baby's crying quieted, like he recognized her voice. Adrian couldn't look away, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Do you want to hold him? Lena asked, looking up at Adrian with tears streaming down her face. His voice came out rough. Are you sure? Please. The nurse showed him how to support the baby's head, how to hold him securely. And then this impossibly small human was in Adrian's arms, staring up at him with dark, unfocused eyes. Hey, little man, Adrian whispered. Welcome to the world. The baby made a small sound, one tiny hand wrapping around Adrian's finger with surprising strength. And just like that, Adrian was gone. Completely, utterly lost. He'd told himself this was just about helping Lena, that he'd keep his distance, keep his heart out of it. But standing there with this baby in his arms and Lena watching him with something soft and complicated in her eyes, he knew the truth. He loved them, both of them, and he was terrified. What are you going to name him? Adrian asked, carefully handing the baby back to Lena. She looked down at her son, smoothing the dark hair on his head. I don't know. I had a list, but now that he's here, none of them feel right. You'll figure it out. Yeah. She looked up at Adrian. Thank you for being here, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. They moved Lena to a recovery room a few hours later. The baby, still unnamed, slept in a bassinet next to her bed. Adrian sat in the chair by the window, watching both of them, unable to make himself leave. You should go home, Lena said softly. Sophie's probably worried. I texted Catherine. She knows you're both okay. Still, you should be with her. I will be, in a bit. Lena shifted in the bed, wincing. The nurse had said she'd be sore for a while, which seemed like the understatement of the century given what Adrian had just watched her go through. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen, he admitted. Imagine how I felt. You were incredible. I was a mess. You were both. She laughed quietly. Yeah, I guess I was. The baby stirred, making small sounds. Lena reached for him automatically, and Adrian saw the way her whole face changed when she held him, like she'd been waiting her entire life for this moment. I should let you rest, Adrian said, standing. Adrian? He stopped. Yeah? I meant what I said, thank you. Not just for tonight. For all of it. I wouldn't have made it without you. Yes, you would have. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to. He wanted to kiss her. The urge was so strong it almost knocked him over. But she'd just been through hell, and she was holding a newborn, and this wasn't the time. I'll come back tomorrow, he said instead. Okay. He made it all the way to the door before she called his name again. Adrian, will you help me pick a name tomorrow? Yeah, I'd like that. Outside, the sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Adrian stood in the hospital parking lot, exhausted and wired and completely overwhelmed. His phone buzzed. Sophie texted from Catherine's phone. Is the baby here? Is Lena okay? He typed back, baby's here. Everyone's perfect. I'll be home soon. The drive back to Lincoln Park felt surreal. The city was waking up around him, people starting their normal days, completely unaware that Adrian's entire world had just shifted on its axis. When he got home, Sophie was already awake, waiting in the kitchen with Catherine. Daddy, she ran to him. Is it a boy or a girl? A boy. Is he cute? Very cute. Can I meet him? Soon. Lena needs to rest first. Sophie processed this seriously. Is she staying, her and the baby? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope they do. I like having them here. Yeah, Adrian said quietly. Me too. That night, lying in his own bed, Adrian stared at the ceiling and thought about the moment when the baby had stopped crying, when the room had gone silent and he'd thought he might lose both of them. The fear had been so sharp, so complete, that he'd almost forgotten how to breathe. He couldn't go through that again, couldn't let himself care this much about people who might disappear. But it was too late. He already did. Adrian picked Lena and the baby up from the hospital 3 days later. She looked exhausted, but different somehow, softer, like becoming a mother had smoothed out some of the sharp edges survival had carved into her. The baby still didn't have a name. I keep trying, Lena said as Thomas loaded her bag into the trunk, but nothing feels right. You'll know when you know, Adrian said, though he had no idea if that was true. Sophie was waiting on the front steps when they pulled up, practically vibrating with excitement. Catherine stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder to keep her from launching herself at the car. Can I see him now, please? Let them get inside first, Catherine said. But Lena was already smiling. It's okay. Come here, Sophie. Sophie approached carefully, like she was afraid the baby might break. She peered into the carrier Adrian was holding. He's so small, she whispered. You were smaller, Adrian said. Really? Really? Can I touch him? Lena nodded, gently. Sophie reached out one finger and touched the baby's hand. His tiny fingers curled around hers reflexively, and Sophie's face lit up like Christmas morning. He likes me. Of course he does, Lena said. They went inside, and Catherine had everything ready. The nursery Adrian had spent the last 2 days frantically preparing bottles and diapers and all the things the baby books said they'd need. The yellow blanket from Lena's old apartment was folded on the dresser, the only thing she'd asked him to bring from there. I can't believe you did all this, Lena said, standing in the doorway of the nursery. It's not much. Are you kidding? Her voice cracked. This is more than I ever thought I'd have. Adrian wanted to tell her she deserved more, that she deserved everything. But Sophie was tugging on his sleeve, asking a million questions about babies and feeding schedules and why they cried so much, so the moment passed. The first week was chaos. The baby woke up every 2 hours screaming, and Lena was running on maybe 3 hours of sleep total. Adrian found himself getting up with her in the middle of the night, making coffee at 3 in the morning while she fed the baby, keeping her company through those long, dark hours when exhaustion made everything feel impossible. "You don't have to do this," she said one night. Or maybe it was morning. Time had stopped making sense. "I know." "So why are you?" "Because I can't sleep knowing you're up here alone. Because when I hear the baby cry, I want to help. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being charity and became something else entirely." "Because you need the help," he said instead. She looked at him over the baby's head, those dark eyes seeing right through him. "That's not why." "No?" "No." "Then why do you think I'm doing it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I think you're lonely. I think you've been lonely for a long time, and this, us being here, makes you feel less alone." The accuracy of it hit him like a fist to the chest. "Am I wrong?" she asked. "No." "I'm lonely too," she said softly. "I've been lonely my whole life, I think, even when I wasn't alone." The baby finished eating and fell asleep against her chest. Lena shifted him carefully, and Adrian saw her wince. "Still sore? Everything hurts. The books don't tell you that part. They make it sound like you just pop out a baby, and everything goes back to normal." "Nothing about this is normal." "No," she agreed. "It's really not." They sat there in the nursery, the only light coming from the small lamp in the corner, and Adrian felt that pull again, stronger now, impossible to ignore. "Lena, I should put him down," she interrupted, standing quickly. "Get some sleep while I can." She was running. He could see it. Every time they got close to something real, something that mattered, she found a reason to leave the room. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe they both needed to keep some distance before this got even more complicated than it already was. But the next morning, everything changed. Adrian was in his study when the doorbell rang. He heard Catherine answer it, heard her voice go cold and formal in the way it only did when she disapproved of something. Then he heard another voice. Male. Demanding. "I'm here to see Lena Hart." Adrian was out of his chair and in the foyer before he consciously decided to move. A man stood there, mid-30s, expensive suit, the kind of guy who thought money made him important. He looked at Adrian with barely concealed irritation. "And you are?" the man asked. "Adrian Cole. I own this house. Who the hell are you?" "Derek Thompson." He said it like Adrian should recognize the name. Adrian felt ice slide down his spine. Derek Thompson. The father. The asshole who'd abandoned Lena when she needed him most. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see my son." "Your son," Adrian repeated slowly. "The one you wanted Lena to abort? That son?" Derek's jaw tightened. "That's between me and Lena. Get out." "I have rights." "You forfeited those rights when you told her she was on her own. That's not how the law works. I don't give a damn how the law works. Get out." "Adrian?" Lena's voice came from the stairs. She was standing there with the baby in her arms, her face pale. "What's going on?" Derek's expression shifted to something that might have passed for remorse if you didn't look too close. "Lena, hi. I heard about the baby." "How?" Her voice was flat. "I ran into your old roommate. She told me. And you decided to show up here. Why?" "I wanted to see him, see you, make sure you're okay." "I'm fine, we're fine, you can leave now." "Lena, please, can we talk?" "No. I made a mistake. I know I did. But that's my son, and He's not your son," Lena said, and her voice was steel. "You made that very clear 8 months ago. You don't get to change your mind now because it's convenient. I want to be involved. Where were you when I was working double shifts pregnant? Where were you when I was living in a one-room apartment with no heat? Where were you when I was eating 1 meal a day so I could save money for baby supplies?" Derek didn't have an answer to that. "That's what I thought," Lena said. "We don't need you. We never did." "That's not your decision to make alone." "Actually, it is. You signed away any say you had when you left." "I never signed anything." Adrian stepped forward. "But you will. My lawyers will draw up paperwork terminating your parental rights. You're going to sign it, and then you're going to leave them alone. You can't make me do anything. Want to bet? I have more money and better lawyers than you've ever seen. I will bury you in legal fees until you wish you'd never walked through that door. This is insane. You can't just..." "Yes, I can. And I will. Because that woman and that baby are under my protection now, and you don't get to come in here after months of nothing and pretend you give a damn. Derek looked between them, calculating. Adrian could see the wheels turning, weighing whether this fight was worth it, whether he actually wanted a kid, or just didn't like losing. Fine, Derek said finally. Have your lawyers send the papers. I'll sign. Smart choice. Derek looked at Lena one more time. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. It's not worth much, Lena said. After he left, the house was silent except for the baby making small sounds against Lena's shoulder. Catherine disappeared tactfully. Sophie was at school. It was just the three of them. Thank you, Lena said quietly. You don't have to thank me for getting rid of that asshole. Not just for that, for... She gestured vaguely. For saying we were under your protection. For standing up for us. Of course I did. It's not of course. Most people wouldn't. I'm not most people. She smiled, but it was sad. No, you're really not. The baby started crying, and Lena shifted him, trying to soothe him. I should feed him. Wait. She stopped. Adrian crossed the space between them. They were close now, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her eyes, close enough to count the freckles across her nose. I need to tell you something, he said. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung between them. Lena stared at him, the baby still crying in her arms. Adrian, I know it's fast. I know it doesn't make sense, but I can't keep pretending this is just about helping you. It stopped being about that a long time ago. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're strong and stubborn, and you fight for what matters. I know you make Sophie laugh. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and you hate asking for help. I know when you smile, really smile, it makes this whole house feel different. You're being ridiculous. Probably. This is a bad idea. Most good things are. The baby's crying got louder. Lena looked down at him, then back at Adrian. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone in. Trust someone. I've been alone for so long, I don't know how to be anything else. So we'll figure it out together. What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure that out too. She laughed, and it sounded like crying. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I love you. I love him. And I want you both to stay. Not temporarily. Not until you get back on your feet. I want you to stay because this is your home now. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Adrian, you don't have to say anything. Not yet. Just think about it. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead, gentle, careful. Then he took the baby from her arms. Go lie down. I've got him. But, Lena, rest. I've got this. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded and went upstairs. Adrian looked down at the still crying baby. All right, little man, let's get you fed. It took him 20 minutes and 3 YouTube videos to figure out how to make a bottle properly, but eventually the baby was eating and quiet. Adrian sat in the nursery rocking chair, holding this tiny human who was somehow already part of his life, part of his heart. Your mom is scared, he said softly. And I get it. I'm scared too. But here's the thing about being scared. You do it anyway. You jump and hope someone catches you. And if they don't, well, at least you jumped. The baby's dark eyes stared up at him, unblinking. I'm going to take care of you, Adrian promised. Both of you. I know I'm not your father, but I want to be. If you'll let me. If she'll let me. The baby finished the bottle and fell asleep. Adrian sat there holding him, not wanting to move, not wanting this moment to end. His phone buzzed. His mother. Vanessa told me the father showed up. Are you out of your mind? Adrian deleted the message without responding. He didn't care what his mother thought. He didn't care what Vanessa thought. He didn't care what anyone thought except Lena. When he finally went downstairs, he found her in the kitchen. She'd showered and changed, her hair still damp. Is he asleep? She asked. Yeah, out cold. Thank you. They stood there awkwardly, the weight of Adrian's earlier confession hanging between them. I meant it, Adrian said, what I said before. I know. And I'm terrified. Because I think I'm falling in love with you too, and I don't know what to do with that. Adrian felt like someone had knocked the air out of his lungs. You are? Yeah, which is insane because a month ago I didn't know you existed. and now I can't imagine my life without you in it." She laughed shakily. "What kind of crazy person falls in love in 3 weeks?" "The kind who recognizes something real when they find it." "Is it real, though, or is it just circumstances? Gratitude? Proximity? Does it feel like gratitude to you?" "No," she admitted. "It feels like something else entirely." Adrian crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "Then stop overthinking it. Stop looking for reasons why it won't work and just be here with me. What if I screw this up? What if you don't?" She looked up at him, and he saw hope fighting with fear in her eyes. Hope won. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? Okay. Let's try this. Let's see what happens." Adrian kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. She kissed him back, and it felt like coming home. They were interrupted by Sophie's voice from the doorway. "Finally!" They broke apart. Sophie was standing there with Catherine behind her, both of them grinning. "How long have you been standing there?" Adrian asked. "Long enough," Sophie said. "Does this mean Lena's staying forever?" Lena laughed. "We're taking it one day at a time, sweetie." "But probably forever, right?" "Sophie," Adrian warned. "What? I'm just asking." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Not a perfect one. The baby still woke up crying, Lena still had moments where she pulled away, and Adrian still had no idea what he was doing half the time. But they figured it out together, stumbling through parenthood and whatever this relationship was becoming. The baby finally got a name, Oliver, after Lena's grandfather. Oliver Hart Cole, because Lena insisted on the hyphenation even though Adrian said she didn't have to. "He's both of ours," she said, "if you want him to be." "I want him to be." So Oliver Hart Cole it was. Adrian's mother showed up unannounced one Saturday morning, marching into the kitchen like she owned the place. She stopped short when she saw Lena feeding Oliver at the table, Sophie sitting next to her doing homework. "Well," Patricia said, "this is domestic." "Mother, what are you doing here?" "I came to see my granddaughter, and apparently to meet the baby." Sophie jumped up. "Grandma, come see Oliver. He can smile now." "Well, Lena says it's gas, but I think he's smiling." Patricia approached cautiously, looking at Oliver like he might explode. But when she got close enough, something in her expression softened. "He's beautiful," she said quietly. "Thank you," Lena said. "May I hold him?" Lena hesitated, then handed Oliver over. Patricia took him with the practiced ease of someone who'd raised children of her own, settling him in her arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Hello, Oliver," she murmured. "Aren't you a handsome boy?" Adrian watched his mother with Oliver, and felt something shift. Maybe she was coming around. Maybe this could actually work. "Can we talk?" Patricia asked, looking at Adrian. "Privately?" They went to the study. Patricia handed Oliver back first, making sure he was secure in Adrian's arms before she spoke. "I owe you an apology," she said. Adrian nearly dropped the baby. "What?" "I was wrong. About Lena. About all of this." Patricia sat down, and for the first time Adrian could remember, she looked tired. "I've been so afraid of you getting hurt again that I didn't see what was actually happening." "Which is? You're happy. For the first time since Emily died, you're actually happy." Adrian didn't know what to say to that. "And Lena, she's good for you. Good for Sophie. I was too stubborn to see it before, but I see it now." Patricia met his eyes. "So I'm sorry for making this harder than it needed to be." "Thank you," Adrian said quietly. "That means a lot. Don't make me regret it." "I won't." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "I should go, but I'd like to come back sometime, get to know Lena properly, and Oliver. I think she'd like that." After she left, Adrian found Lena in the nursery, organizing baby clothes that didn't need organizing. "Your mom hates me," she said without turning around. "No, she doesn't." "She does. I can feel it. She apologized, said she was wrong about you." Lena turned, surprised. "Really?" "Really. Said you make me happy." "Do I? What do you think?" She smiled. And yeah, Adrian was happy. Happier than he'd been in years. Maybe happier than he'd ever been. But the universe wasn't done testing them yet. 2 days later, Adrian came home from work to find Lena sitting in the living room with papers spread across the coffee table. "What's all this?" he asked. Job applications. Adrian felt his stomach drop. What? I can't just live here forever doing nothing, Adrian. I need to work. I need to contribute. You are contributing. You're taking care of Oliver. That's not the same thing. Why not? Because I'm not a housewife. I have a degree. I have skills. I want to use them. Adrian sat down across from her. Is this about money? Because you know you don't have to worry about it. It's not about money. It's about me needing to be my own person, not just Oliver's mom or your... She trailed off. My what? I don't know. What am I? Your girlfriend? Your charity case? The woman you took in out of pity? You're the woman I love. That's not a job title, Adrian. No, but it's a hell of a lot more important than one. She rubbed her face, frustrated. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I've spent my entire adult life barely surviving, scraping by, depending on no one because I couldn't afford to. And now I have this perfect life handed to me, and part of me keeps waiting for it to disappear. It's not going to disappear. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. No, you can't. People leave, Adrian. They die, or they change their minds, or they realize you're not worth the trouble. And when that happens, I need to be able to take care of myself and Oliver. I need to know we'll be okay. Adrian understood then. This wasn't about the job. This was about control, about making sure she had an escape route if everything fell apart. Okay, he said. Okay? If you want to work, work. I'll help you find something. We'll figure out childcare, whatever you need. Just like that? Just like that. But Lena? I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you. This isn't temporary. This is our life now. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. How can you be so sure? Because I've already lost one person I loved. I know what that feels like. And this? This doesn't feel like that. This feels like building something that lasts. 3 months later, Lena started working part-time for a nonprofit that helped homeless families find housing. It was perfect for her, using her social work degree, making a difference, proving to herself that she was more than just someone who needed saving. Adrian supported it all, even on the days when Oliver was teething and screaming and Lena came home exhausted. Even when it meant adjusting schedules and hiring a nanny and learning to juggle more than he'd ever juggled before. Because that's what you did when you loved someone. You made it work. Sophie turned 7. Oliver learned to roll over, then sit up, then crawl. The house that had been so quiet for so long filled with noise and chaos and life. And somewhere in all of that, Adrian realized he'd stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. One evening in late summer, he found Lena in the backyard. Oliver was asleep in her arms, and she was sitting on a blanket watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Hey, Adrian said, sitting down next to her. Hey, yourself. He down for the count? For now. Give it 20 minutes. Adrian smiled. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? Lena looked at him, really looked at him. Yeah, I really am. Good. Are you? Yeah, I am. They sat there in comfortable silence, Sophie running around the yard chasing fireflies, Oliver sleeping peacefully, the world settling into that quiet space between day and night. I never thought I'd have this, Lena said softly. A family, a home, someone who actually gives a damn. You deserve all of it. I don't know about that. I do. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Remember that night at the hospital when I collapsed? How could I forget? If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't cared enough to actually see me instead of just looking past me like everyone else, I don't know where I'd be right now. Probably back in that apartment. Probably struggling to feed Oliver. Probably miserable. But you're not. No, I'm not. Because you decided I was worth saving. You were always worth saving, Lena. I just happened to be paying attention. She turned to look at him. I love you. I don't think I say that enough. You show it every day. Still, I love you, Adrian Cole. You and your impossible kindness and your terrible habit of fixing things that aren't yours to fix. You were always mine to fix. That's a terrible line. I know, but it's true. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, while Oliver slept between them and Sophie's laughter echoed across the yard. This wasn't the life either of them had planned. It wasn't neat or simple or easy, but it was theirs, built from broken pieces and second chances and the stubborn belief that sometimes, against all odds, things actually work out. 6 months later, Adrian asked Lena to marry him in the same nursery where they'd spent so many sleepless nights with Oliver. It wasn't fancy or elaborate, just him, on one knee, with a ring he'd spent weeks choosing, and a speech he'd practiced 100 times, but forgot the second he actually looked at her. "I'm probably supposed to say something romantic here," he said, "but all I can think is that I want to do this forever. The sleepless nights, and the chaos, and the beautiful mess of building a life together. So will you marry me?" Lena was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yeah, yes, obviously, yes." They got married 3 months later in the backyard where they'd sat that summer evening. Nothing huge, just close friends and family, Sophie as the flower girl, and Oliver in a tiny suit that he immediately spit up on. Patricia cried during the ceremony, which shocked everyone, including herself. Marcus gave a speech about how he'd known Adrian for 15 years and never seen him smile this much. Catherine organized everything with her usual terrifying efficiency. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Adrian kissed Lena like she was the only person in the world. "I can't believe this is real," Lena whispered against his lips. "Believe it. We're actually doing this, building a life together. We've been building it for months. This just makes it official." She laughed. "I love you so much. I love you too, both of you." He looked down at Oliver and Lena's arms. "All of you." Sophie ran up and hugged them both. "Does this mean I get to call Lena Mom?" Lena's eyes filled with tears. "If you want to." "I want to." So she did. And Adrian Cole, billionaire, single father turned family man, the guy who'd spent 5 years convinced he'd never love again, looked at his wife and his son and his daughter and realized something important. Wealth wasn't about money. It never had been. It was about moments like this. People who mattered. Love that showed up even when it was inconvenient, especially when it was inconvenient. It was about seeing someone who needed help and deciding they were worth the trouble. It was about taking a chance on something impossible and watching it become real. That night, after the guests left and Oliver was asleep and Sophie was in bed, Adrian and Lena stood in their bedroom, not the guest room anymore, but their room, and just looked at each other. "We did it," Lena said. "Did what?" "Survived. Built something good out of nothing. Proved everyone wrong who said it wouldn't work." "Did people say that?" "Your mother definitely thought it. She came around. Eventually." Adrian pulled Lena close. "I don't care what anyone thought, this was always going to work." "How did you know?" "I didn't, I just hoped really hard." She smiled against his chest. "That's not very reassuring." "No, but it's honest." They stood there for a while, just holding each other, grateful for every unlikely twist that had brought them here. Because life wasn't a fairy tale. There was no magic fix, no perfect ending where all the problems disappeared. There was just this. Two imperfect people choosing each other every single day, working through the hard parts, celebrating the good parts, building something that mattered. And maybe that was better than any fairy tale could ever be. Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness. Inside, a family slept, cobbled together from broken pieces, held together by love and stubbornness and the radical decision to care when it would have been easier not to. It wasn't the ending either of them expected, but it was the one they deserved.